I'm life and business coach Samantha Sifring, and this is the Online Business Building Mamas podcast, where you learn how to build a wildly successful business from home while raising kids. Hello, everybody. I have my friend and client, Kristiina Craven, on today. And we're going to be talking about starting a VA business and why we both believe that starting with a VA business is the best way to get started with an online business, to hit 5K months, to be making money online very quickly. She's going to tell you all about herself and her story and how to get started if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I love you talking about making all this money, and I have no idea how to do that. We are solving that problem for you today. So, Kristiina, introduce us to you.
Thank you so much, Samantha. So I'm Kristiina Craven, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I've got a couple of teenagers, and I have had a little bit of a journey getting to becoming a VA. As Samantha knows, tried a lot of different things, and blogging, Etsy store. I had a photography business, and really landed on VA work, and really kind of found the solution to the problem as I saw it, being a stay-at-home mom looking to work.
Yeah, and you're also a homeschool mom, which I think is more relevant than ever to everyone listening.
There's a lot of homeschooling, not by choice, maybe, moms out there that are juggling working and having their kids at home right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get into talking about what VA work is. I have a lot of people who are like, what's VA? So it's virtual assisting. Would you tell us a little bit more about what that means and what that looks like?
Yeah, I like to explain it. A lot of people are, as you know, we had this conversation a couple years ago. They're a little bit kind of turned off by the term virtual assistant because it sounds like, especially if someone's coming from maybe having a corporate background, assistant doesn't really sound that exciting. But I really like to look at it as freelance work. So wherever you have skills, you can be virtually providing those skills to someone else, and that's just freelance work.
Yes, I love it. So what kind of skills do you see fitting best into this kind of career?
Oh my gosh, it runs. I mean, this is what I love about virtual assisting is you can truly do just like a brainstorm of all of the things, the skills that you have that you can bring from, maybe, like I said, you worked in corporate. Maybe you never did, but maybe you have skills from you're highly organized, or you run your home really well. All of those skills and talents that you have can be kind of repackaged, if you will, and marketed to online business owners or brick and mortar business owners. I think you could do, oh my gosh, bookkeeping to inbox management. You can do customer service. You can do editing, marketing. You can do social media. I feel like there's no limit. And when I first started kind of looking into it and looking at some of the skills I had and what I could use to help other people, I was amazed at, like, one of my current clients, actually, we just laughed because I started out doing something, I can't even remember what I started out doing with her. And it has iterated so many times just because either I was willing to learn something new, or I had the skill that she didn't even know I had. And I was just spoke up and saw a need. And so we kind of have just created this job for me.
I love it. I love it. Tell me a little bit more about the kind of work that you particularly do with your clients, because I think people hear this and they want to know, like, what does it actually look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started out doing social media management. I think that's a really great entree point because I feel like most people have a social media account, so they at least are familiar with it. And while they may not feel like, oh, I could go and grow this person's account, they kind of have the familiarity with it. They kind of understand how the algorithm works. They could take a free course probably and get a lot of the skills they need. But for me, I kind of morphed into, I went from social media management to providing pitching and PR services, which seems like a kind of a random jump, but I was working with a client doing her Instagram, and she was starting a podcast, and I was doing research for her on other podcasts. And I just kind of dove into that. And then we realized, oh, it would be great for her to be on other people's podcasts. So I wrote an email that was, quote, a pitch, and started pitching her to podcasts. And that kind of grew into an area that I didn't even know I had a strength in. So kind of working with a current client, we kind of developed the skill in me. So then I kind of went all in on the PR work, and I was doing the pitching and supporting people with podcasts, like creating, audio clips and promoting their podcast, kind of like a variety of things. And then I transitioned into doing Pinterest management. That's what's so amazing about this work is you can be a jack of all trades and figure out a way to market yourself. It's not like you have to be pigeonholed into one area. So that kind of all transitioned into now I'm supporting mostly coaches and helping them with membership programs, doing customer service, which I absolutely love. And I wasn't doing that in the past. And it's like this passion that I have. I'm a helper at heart. So I'm supporting like the back end of other people's businesses. And that really looks like anything they need. It can be ordering gifts. It can be managing, client disputes, payments. I'm doing a little bit of Instagram, podcast management, kind of like a Jane of all trades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. And I love that it's been an evolution for you. And I had somebody ask me the other day for a incredible VA. And I was like, oh, the one that I really want to recommend to you is phasing out her VA work.
I saw that post. I almost actually responded to it because I do love it so much.
I know. And you're so good at it. And numerous clients of mine work with you and they just rave about your work. So
I love it. Thank you.
That kind of segues into another question that I really want to make sure that we cover, and that is how you get clients. So you talked about what services to offer, being okay being a Jane of all trades, being okay letting it evolve. But I think a lot of people are like, okay, I'm organized. I know some of these basics, but how do I even find clients? So tell us a little about that.
Yeah, it's kind of evolved just like my business has. But in the beginning, I found my very first client within 2 weeks of opening up my business in a Facebook group. So I think it was kind of a business-y kind of group. I can't remember which group it was, but someone actually posted like, I'm thinking about hiring an Instagram person down the road, kind of drop your information. And this is like my number one tip for people first starting out. Do not just respond to someone's post with your link to your business page or a link to your website. What I did was I went to this person's profile, found her website, took about 10 or 15 minutes to kind of go through it and really got a feel for her. And I felt I was like, yeah, I really want to help her on her mission. I felt kind of connected. And I sent her an email. I also created, I believe, like 3 to 5 Instagram like quote posts and things that I thought might look, with her colors that I just kind of was able to guess. There's sites that you can use to do that. And I sent her this heartfelt email. And I said, hey, I understand you're looking for someone to support you. And this is what I'm seeing on how we could work together to grow your Instagram following. Also, by the way, I created some graphics. This is kind of like the work that I do. Let me know if you want to hop on a call. Would love to meet you. And she responded and was like blown away by this. She was just like, she got, probably 100 people dropped their links on her post. And that puts, stress on the person posting, the person that wants to hire out. They don't have time to go through 100 people's links. So we're making them do work to hire us. That's not the right approach at all. So making it super easy for people to connect with you and then want to hire you. That's a great tip. So we got on a call and we just kind of had this good energy and it was a great call and she hired me. So Facebook groups are a great place to meet people because people post all the time they have these needs. There are, endless people with online businesses, especially with the year that we've had now. I mean, I used to think VA work was in hot demand, 2 years ago, and now it's like exploded even more. I think so many people have things in their business that they could outsource, but they don't even know, the first step of how to find the VA. So it's like you kind of have to go in and maybe take that extra step to find your ideal client. Even like if I had gone to this person's website and it was like completely turned off, I wouldn't have sent the email. I think that's important too. You don't just want to take any client, but that's another thing that's a whole other road we could go down. But yeah, so in the beginning I was in Facebook groups, I was commenting. I wasn't just in there looking for people who needed work. I was being involved in the group, and I would provide value, but then I could also like just respond to a poll, or if someone was asking something non-business related, I might respond to that. And that worked really well for me. And then I believe I think it was still kind of networking. I was in a couple group, like business groups for myself, and that helped me kind of network too. And then it started turning more into like a referral based. And that's primarily how I get all of my work, or how I was up until this point getting all my work is referral based. And that can come from just people that you're meeting in Facebook groups, or it can come from clients or coaches. It can come from anywhere. And I think as you grow your business, you get more confidence, and you don't have to do as much of that heavy lifting on the, front end marketing piece.
Yeah, I think what you did with that very first client is genius. And I'm so glad you shared that. I had completely forgotten that you did that, but I remembered when you did that at the very beginning, just being like, wow, that is so impressive. And I felt that all over again right now. But I think a lot of people maybe would be hesitant to email like that, maybe would be hesitant to put that level of work in it. But I think what you show in your story is how that really made you stand out so much. And you didn't have to do that level of work for that many people before you started filling up with clients. And I think when you are strategic about, okay, this is somebody who has actually asked for help. So this is not like a cold pitch to some random person on the internet, which I get those all the time. Like, hey, I'm an assistant, I could help you. And I'm like, no, my needs are met. I'm not responding to these pitches. But for you, it was somebody who had actually asked for help. And then you did this deep dive to both get to know them so that you could offer value, but also to see, are we a fit? Do I like what they do? Does it seem like we would click? And then you did that work to put together the thoughtful pitch that was personalized, that had those graphics. And it is work up front, but then as you saw, it really paid off and allowed you to start building up that initial momentum. And I think a lot of people who start online are spending time researching and creating graphics and that kind of thing. Anyway, they're doing it for themselves. And then they're posting it out on Instagram where they have no audience and no one's seeing it. And so for you, you did it to these hyper specific targeted people instead. And it seemed like it just paid off so quickly.
Yeah, instead of, I think to your point, like trying to organically attract clients on my social media feed, I went to where the clients' needs were and then kind of tailored my pitch towards them. Yeah. I can't even imagine trying to grow a business just using my organic Instagram, right? Like, I think it would have taken forever. I think go to where the clients are. And you taught me that very early on. It's like, go where your clients are. And I think a lot of people make that harder than it needs to be. Everyone's like, well, where are my ideal clients? And it, either find groups that you're just really interested in. Like I'm in a lot of like office fan page groups and like human design groups. And maybe I'm not getting clients there, but like you practice the networking and meeting people. And then in the business groups or groups where maybe your ideal clients are, you're more likely to kind of have that energy of like just networking. You're just trying to get to know people.
Yeah. And then once you build up that network, you get so much word of mouth, so many referrals. Like I sent so many people your way because I was like, I have a lot of confidence in her. She has confidence in what she offers. I know she does good work. And once you've built up that reputation, it's not that long before you get fully booked and then you're maxed out on clients. And I think that's something to really keep in mind with this kind of work, that it doesn't take that long to get fully booked. And I want to talk a little bit about the VA business model and give some good recommendations to people. But with this type of business and this type of business model, you don't really have to do traditional marketing as we think of it at all. You can just network your way to fully booked.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So let's talk about the right business model for making this make sense and specifically getting to 5K months, because that's something that you've done. Tell us, like, what was the journey from that first client that you got 2 weeks into consistent 5K months as a VA?
I think at that first year, I believe I made it to the 3K months, and I had done the deep dive into kind of going all in on the PR work. And then I had, like I said, pivoted again, which is okay to everyone out there. I think that's another thing with VA work is like, everyone's like, oh, I have to brand myself as this, pigeonhole myself, so to speak, in this one area. And I am proof that you do not have to do that. I have pivoted so many times. And yes, I had some mind drama around that. You helped me get through some of that drama. Nobody cares. They just want to know that you can help them. That's the really the end, the point. So I made it to 3K months, and then I had a little bit of a dip. I wasn't really sure the direction I wanted to go. And then I got really motivated again because I was going to get coach certification. So that kind of lit a little bit more of a fire under me. And I just told people, I think I even reached out to you and was like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm looking if you have your recommendations. I think we're almost scared to say that because it's like, is that okay? And it's 100% okay. People wouldn't know that you're looking for work if you don't say it, you know? So for me, that's what started the whole referral base. And then that just, as I worked with those clients, my role grew because once you get your foot in the door, you can showcase the other skills that you have. If someone's looking to be a VA, I suspect they have skills in a lot of different areas. And most business owners can really utilize you for more than just the area that and it's easier for them. Instead of having to hire multiple people, you can handle a lot of those tasks that they need done. So for me, I was able to kind of exploit the good work I was doing and then provide more value to them, which then, the more value you give, the more you get paid. So I think that for me, it was like getting awesome, great networking, getting great referrals, awesome clients, and then just going all in on providing more value. And I have just grown those relationships and grown the work that I'm doing with them to get me to the consistent 5K months. And yeah, I think that's the main. Oh, and just for me too, being a homeschooling mom, the time management piece, I did a lot of work. As you know, you've coached me a lot on my time management, my belief that I'm not organized, my belief that I can't do this with kids at home. We've been homeschooling for about this is our 4th year. So I wasn't always doing that, but around the same time that I was really trying to find work from home, I also had my kids and I had a lot of drama around that. And the bottom line is it can be done. And it's just not as hard as we all make it. It's just our brain is just like freaking out. Like there is no way you can do it. And I also think I used to fall back on the crutch of I can't do it because of my kids. And that would kind of also keep me safe. Like it was like my noble obstacle, like, oh, because I need to be here for my kids, I can't grow this business. But the truth is you can work part-time and make 5K months. If I can do it, anybody can.
Yes, I love that so much. So I want to kind of pull out this concept, a couple different things. So first, giving value at the very beginning as a marketing strategy to those people that you know are looking for help. That was fantastic. And then giving more value to the people you are working with, maybe pitching to them, hey, I could help you with this other thing. And then they're like, yes, please, I will pay you more. That is another strategy to then make more money with a current client without even signing another client. And then asking people for referrals. I remember you reached out to me and you were like, I have decided for sure I want to be a coach I want to do coach training. And I think you were like, I want to start it in like a month and I have like 3 weeks to make the money to make the first payment. There was like some tight timeline of some sort that I was like, okay, I am on board with this. I'm going to help you. And I remember having a couple really quickly growing clients at the same time who needed help, who were looking for assistance. And I was like, perfect, talk to Kristiina. And I think like it was just really good fits with a couple of them. And I think so many people are hesitant to make those kinds of asks like you did. And I'm so glad that you did, because I very easily the next week could have talked to those clients and had them be like, I need some VA work. And I would be like, I don't really know any VAs right now. So I think it's just so important to speak up and tell people, because people want to help. I wanted to help you. I always want to help you do whatever your next goal is. Um, so let's talk a little bit about how you make money as a VA, how you decide what that offer is. Because I think a lot of people choose this not super familiar with online business. So I want to tell them a little bit about the retainer business model and have you explain how that works.
Yeah, so I started out with an hourly rate, and it's really interesting going back to like the first couple of clients I had when I was doing the Instagram management. I realized very quickly that even though I felt like my rate was high compared to like working at Starbucks, it quickly, especially if I did a package based on an hourly. I know this is a little bit confusing, but it was hourly. But in my mind, then I created a package based on that hourly rate. I realized quickly that I wasn't getting paid. Like I was getting paid less than I would have been making at Starbucks for the time that it was taking. So I definitely raised my rate. I think people have a lot of drama around that as well. But I truly think that people who have a growing business and they value what you're doing, it's worth every penny from their perspective. But I do think having an hourly based business is just trading time for money. And I totally think people need to move. You can start out hourly if that's what you're comfortable with, but it's very quickly you should move into kind of like the retainer packages, because A, you don't want to track your time. That's a hassle. But B, you have to look at it more of like the value that you're providing the client. And I think that we underestimate that. And even at my what I consider a high, I mean, I had a couple people who were like, they were like, oh my gosh, it's going to be that much money. And then I said, well, let's do a month together and let's give it a try and make sure that we, like, for both of our sakes, let's make sure that we work well together. And then once you kind of build that trust and they realize like, oh, she's worth every penny, no problem. How do I pay you really fast? But then moving into more of a value-based retainer package, because then you have more solid ground. You know what to expect. You've got 3 months of income coming. You've got 6 months, however that looks like for you. That just makes more sense as a business model. And also for the client, they know they can count on you for 3 months. They know that you're not just going to be like, oh, at the end of the month, she's not going to be here anymore.
You're right. Starting with hourly can be really good because you may not be super familiar with what that value exchange really is until you've done some of the hourly work. How do you recommend people decide that initial hourly rate?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Well, first of all, you have to really consider your expenses. And being a VA, really, there's a low barrier to entry. Like if you have a laptop and internet, you can be a VA. It's no, like the expenses really aren't that high, but you also have to consider taxes. There are some expenses that go into it. So when someone says like, oh, I'm going to charge $25 an hour, and they're feeling like that's really high because, I could make 15 at Starbucks, but I could sit home and make 25. And yes, that is a great hourly rate. But then once you actually do the math, it doesn't really come out to $25 a month. And you may have a subscription to Canva. You might have a couple of little expenses. So I think I've heard it explained two ways. You can either decide like how much money you want to make and then do the math on how many clients you think you can handle and work backwards that way and kind of come up and divide and kind of come up with like an hourly rate that way. I think that's a great starting point because it gives you some sort of framework to work from. But I think just setting it, maybe even adding $5 or $10 an hour to it, just to push yourself out of just because I know, like, you may think that rate sounds great, but like in the end, like I said, after you do the math, you don't want to be bitter that you're not getting paid for your time or what you're worth. So I recommend maybe go, if you're brand new, start with your rate, get a couple clients, see how long it takes you, do the math. And like you said, I think if you don't have experience, you don't even know. Like for me, when I was doing the Instagram support, I mean, I completely underestimated how much of my brain space was going to be taken up for brainstorming ideas, doing the content calendar, writing captions, doing graphics. It was a lot more than I thought it would. So that's kind of why I think it's good to start hourly if you don't know, because you don't even know how to set a package rate, because you don't know how many hours it's going to take you to support someone in that area, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that that is so smart. And then moving into that value-based package where there's a flat rate for the month for a list of things that you'll cover. And then having those multi-month agreements, I think is so valuable too, because you don't want there to be this huge question mark month to month long term.
Yeah, and I think the packages or the retainers, however you want to call it, you can do it like you can have, if you're just doing social media, then you have like 3 tiers, let's say, where the highest tier is you're doing the graphics, captions, store, you're doing it all. Whereas on maybe the lower tier, it's just posting their content, every day or whatever. But then like for me, because I am kind of a Jane of all trades, it's a little bit more like listing out, like you said, okay, well, or if I'm adding on something, then, we're going to add $500 a month because now I'm supporting the, Facebook group management. So it's just a little bit of trial and error. I think really the best way to get started on is to get started. And then you can kind of like tweak as you go.
Yeah. All the clients that I've had that have been virtual assistants have just gotten started and then learned some of these lessons the hard way. They've started with a rate that maybe felt like a stretch at the very beginning of their business. And several months in, we're like, oh, I hate this client. They don't pay me enough to care about them. And then they've been ready to raise the rate because of that feeling. So those types of things are normal. And I think, you can listen to this episode, you can be in Mama to CEO and learn a lot of this stuff in advance. But some of it you will also just learn from getting in it and doing it and learning the hard way on some of these things. And that's not a problem.
Oh, not a problem at all. I've learned, and I'm in my mid 40s now. I finally learned like, oh, I actually like learning the hard way. That's the best way for me to learn.
It really cements it into your brain. Every time I have to learn the hard way, there was just something this week where my coach had told me specifically something and it hadn't really sunk in. So then I spent months learning the hard way. And I just this month had this like awakening of like, oh my gosh, I get it. And then I went back and saw that she had told me that at the beginning of this year. And I was like, oh, well, I guess I had to learn that one the hard way. She tried to
Yeah.
help me avoid that lesson.
Your
But
brain just wasn't open to it. Yeah.
no, my brain was like, no, I want to really struggle and fail at it first. But now I won't forget it. So there's a benefit to the hard learns too.
Agreed. Yeah. I think back to, there was one client in particular where I realized like, oh yeah, I was so bitter. I was like, and so you're right. That is kind of like, it helps you to raise your rates because you're realizing I'm undervalued and you don't want to show up with that energy. And so I think just jumping in and then adjusting as you go is just, it's amazing. And you might have to quote, fire a client, but that's part of the growth too. And they don't want to work with you if you don't want to work with them anyway. So it works out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always going to be somebody willing to pay you at your next highest rate.
100%. I think there's so much drama, as you know, as a coach, a business coach, that like, it's just like, if they're not, that's how I approach. It's so funny, even though I had the referrals, I think during the consult call or whatever people want to call it, discovery call, like I just was like, this is my rate. Like, I won't feel valued unless I get this rate. And for me, coming to it, it took me a long time to get there because in the beginning I would be like, oh, and I was, quite a bit less in the beginning, but you just get to the point where you have the experience, so you know how much you're pouring into this work and what your worth is. And that might not happen at first, but I think the trial and error is really going to get you there faster.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's talk about the time management a little bit more because this is such a pain point for all of us. And I think for somebody who, especially right now, there's been so many moms who have left careers and come home this year to help with the schooling, and they've got to make some money. They do have some time and they might be a little apprehensive about starting a business and how they're going to balance that time. So, could you tell me a little bit more about how you figured that out and what it looks like now?
Well, it took a little bit of coaching, a little bit in quotes, because I think for me, it was like my brain was just like, couldn't compute that this could work. And it just kept fighting me every step of the way. But I think now I'm in such a groove. It's so, I mean, I am like, I just can't believe the growth I've had in the last 2 years, especially around this issue. And it's just built so much confidence in myself and confidence in my ability to support my clients. So for me, it's finding those pockets. I think you teach, I don't remember if you call them pockets or blocks, in the time management. And for me, that was life changing to realize like, I may not always know how long a task is going to take, but I kind of have a general idea. Again, trial and error and adjusting as you go. But for me, I mean, my kids are teenagers, but they weren't teenagers when we first started doing this. And, I have a high needs child. And yeah, I mean, I have challenges just like any other mom, but I have really focused on constraining my work time. That is my number one tip. Constraining and really focusing on the work instead of kind of spreading it out throughout the day. For me, that has been the biggest difference in my productivity. And then I also constrain when I'm with my kids. And probably some people listening to this might have younger kids, and maybe they're feeling like, well, I don't, I'm kind of more at the whim of my toddlers or whatever. But you can find those pockets. And if it means, your child wakes up early from a nap, then shifting that 2 hour block to after they go to bed at night, or getting creative or moving it to the next day. I guess my biggest thing I want to say is that you can do it. You can figure it out. Like, don't let your brain tell you like, it's just impossible. I can't do it. The kids are young. It's never going to happen. Because I lived in that world for probably 10 years and I could have been doing so much more.
Yeah. I think so many people get stopped by that as well. And part of it is thinking that business has to look a certain way for it to work. I have seen that come up so much lately. And it's why I like to be really honest about the things about me that are not following that mold of what we think business should look like. Like, I don't get up early. I don't work 40-hour weeks. I starting in January, I'm taking Monday and Friday off every week. Like, there's ways to make it work for you. And like you said, moving those things around, being willing to work like really part-time hours. You don't have to work 40 hours to make 5K.
Oh yeah. When I couldn't work 40, I mean, well, that's my brain saying that, but I don't want to work 40
It
hours a week.
also could be true.
Yeah, I think also doing what we say we're going to do, that's been a big piece of my growth, is that self-integrity of, no, I'm working on this podcast episode for a client between 9 and 10 on this day, and showing up and doing it, even when my brain every single time is like, I don't want to do that right now.
Yes.
But I have to do it because, oh my gosh, getting that work done when I say I'm going to, because who knows, like if I tried to push it to the afternoon and then there's a crisis with my kid or something else comes up, then I'm really in trouble because I didn't do it when I had planned to. So I think that, something else you taught me was, treating my business, showing up as a professional. It's not a hobby. This is my actual job. And being the owner of this business was a really big shift for me. And it doesn't have to look like everybody else's business. So kind of that flexibility is still there, but showing up the way that works for me as a professional, really made a big difference.
Yeah. I think showing up when you don't really feel like it, because like thinking back to my life when I had toddlers at home, I did have quite a bit of free time. Now, it wasn't like totally uninterrupted, blissful, not responsible for anyone time, but it would be time where like I remember I was really first getting into personal development and online business and all of that. And I remember being in my kitchen all the time, and I would have my laptop in my kitchen, and the kids would be playing in the other room, and I could see them like over the countertop in the other room, just like playing, watching PBS Kids, whatever. And that was not time that I was spending in online business, but it could have been. And if I had been willing to take advantage of those little pockets and prioritize the business over the dishes and the laundry, like obviously kids first, keeping them alive, making sure they're being safe, but then squeezing in these business tasks and then letting the household tasks be like getting to them when you get to them. There's always going to be dishes and laundry. Always. Like there's always going to be something to clean in the house. But I think,
Never ending.
yeah, I think that little shift really, like I could have done something with that time. Cause like I said, I was sitting there watching a lot of like Wayne Dyer on YouTube and
You're
taking
describing
notes.
me. It's so funny. I didn't realize we had this in common. I also had a laptop, and I would be sitting with my kids, like they'd be playing, doing puzzles or
Mhm.
whatever. And I'd be, listening to Oprah or Eckhart Tolle or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But this was before your time as a mom. And for me, 14 years ago, there probably were VAs or virtual assistants or freelancers, but it wasn't kind of what it is today. And it was not anything that I was aware. It was not in my realm at all. And I definitely have had to let go a lot of like, not bitterness, but just like, man, like I had the time. I could have been, the work I do now, I can do it. I'm not on the phone. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I can do it on my time, which is
Yeah.
the biggest gift as a VA. Like I can do it after my kids go to bed. I can do it, hanging out with my husband. There's some things that are just so admin-y that I don't need, we've got the office on in the background and I'm just plowing through. And it's so interesting too. I think about this a lot. Like my mom raised 8 kids and did not have the same opportunity that we have. I just truly believe I'm just like so grateful that I am alive in this day and age when we have access like this. Like my mom worked retail. That was her only option. She worked at a preschool part-time once we kind of got into the school age, and then she worked retail because those were her options. And I'm so grateful. And I encourage anybody who is at home with kids and looking to start a business, like virtual assistant work is the perfect entree into the online business world. And it gives me chills to think about like the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. I have chills thinking about it too. And I always say this like, we are living in the best time for women and moms that we have ever seen. And it's not a perfect time. And I think sometimes people can get hung up on what's not great about this time. But truly, we have more choice, we have more freedom than ever before. And choice and freedom about becoming financially independent and being able to create that income. And that's why I love the 5K month thing so much, because I think like that is the revenue that a lot of people can live on. I think anybody can live on that. Like now it's not going to be a luxurious life, but you can build from it. But that's going to meet your needs. That's going to feed, clothe, shelter your children. That is going to open up so many options, and it can be done, like you've said, in part-time hours with little kids at home. And once they go to school, and once the pandemic's over and they're really in school, there's so much time to be building and working for those people who are sending them to school. For you, like when your kids are out of the house. Like you're just going to have unlimited time to build an empire, and doing this work really builds such a solid foundation. Like even for you transitioning into coaching, your virtual assisting work, you built a network, you built skills, you built so much of a foundation that now is going to exist for you to build your coaching business on top of.
Yeah, I can be my own VA.
Yeah. Which is kind of the reality when you start as a coach.
Right?
Yeah, so good. Okay, any other thoughts for somebody who, I'm specifically thinking this episode is for somebody who is like, I want to make money from home. Like I was talking to my sister-in-law the other day, and she's home with soon to be 2 kids, and she was just chatting with me about online business. And I was like, yeah, I think virtual assisting is the best place to start, because within like a month or two, you could be making $1,000 to $5,000 a month. You can build it up from there. And it's part-time hours. And like her eyes popped out of her head and her jaw dropped to the floor. And she was like, you're kidding me. How? And so for women who are in my orbit who experience that same reaction, I want this episode to be like their starter kit. Like they can go out and make money this week knowing what we teach them here. So is there anything else that you want to share to that woman?
Yeah, I would say 2 things. If you're not sure if you have any marketable skills, I would get a piece of paper and a pen and start writing down everything that you're good at. And it can relate to home management, it can relate to like your past work experience or just something you enjoy. You might just be like a highly organized person, or you have no idea how many of your skills that don't seem like they would apply, how many do. So I would highly recommend like doing a brain dump of just things you love doing, skills you know you have, things that people have told you you're good at. That's a great starting point. And then looking at maybe going through and circling like what are the top 10 things from that list that you would really like to do more often. Like you don't pick something that you dread. Like you might be really great at paying the bills or doing the accounting for the household, but you may hate it. I wouldn't recommend marking yourself if that's the case. But that's a great starting point, especially for people that just don't even know where to begin. Like I would say that would kind of build even a little bit of like just the confidence and encourage yourself, I guess, to know that you have skills you can market. No need to have like a fancy website or anything. If you're on Facebook, I would recommend doing a Facebook page with filling out, doing a pinned post at the top that talks about the services you can offer, maybe even who you would want to support, talking about it like who you support, with like filling out the about section so that if someone's hovering over your name in a Facebook group, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in the online business world is people will be in groups, they'll even be responding to these job posts and you hover over their name and there's no link to any business page, website. It's such a basic on your personal profile to have links to a business page, or if you have a website, great, but you don't need one. I think using your Facebook business page as a kind of like a mini website is all you need. You can there's a section on there for services. You can put your pricing if you wanted. It's actually really robust and it's a free way to kind of put up the shingle for your business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that is so important that people know, like you don't have to invest a lot of time, resources, money to get going with this. And website is for sure one of those things. Skip, because like you said, Kristiina, you pivoted so many times. And
Oh,
every
great
single time
point.
you pivot, you
Yes.
have to update the website.
Yeah, and all I really did, I really focused on that business page where it would take me, 20 minutes to pull those services off and take the pinned post. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even though I had the mind drama, that piece was super easy to take care of. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess the final thing that I want to say, going back to how you talked about when you first started online, and I have such a similar story. You talked about doing photography, blogging, and Etsy shop. I did blogging, network marketing, Etsy shop, What else? I did all kinds of crazy little things. And none of those things have the kind of profit margin that you get with virtual assisting. And that is really what I love about starting with this kind of business, that for each yes that you're getting, you can be making 400 to well over $1,000 per client. And like you could have 5 clients at $1,000 and be at your 5K months. And that would be part time helping those people. So I think it's just so valuable to really be thinking about like what is going to be that payoff of the thing that I choose. Like blogging, think about how long it takes to get traction, to even have the kind of traffic to get an ad, and then like fractions of a cent per click. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, I've tried it all. And I had, like you, I had this really strong desire to work because I was like, I have this brain
yeah,
and it's just a wasted resource in our family. I could be bringing in money. And I tried all of those things. And oh my gosh, the blood, sweat, and tears. I learned a lot, which was
yeah,
great because it really helped me in, now that I'm the Jane of all trades. But I totally agree with you. It is the best job to do, to have that profit margin be higher than, and you get to do it from home. Like
yes.
it's a no brainer.
Yeah, I totally, totally agree. So now tell us a little bit about your pivot, because I have some people who come to me and they're either already a VA or they're looking at it and they're like, but that's just not my passion. And I know like that's not really your passion either. You have found ways to love it, which I encourage everybody, like find ways to love doing this virtual assistant work, because you can love it and enjoy it and be making really good money. And you can use it to support you to go after the thing that is truly your passion. So tell us a little bit about that journey and what you're doing now.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I agree. You can do this work and not have it be like your life's work. For me, I do genuinely love helping. So it does fit with kind of my personality. But yeah, I've just been a personal development junkie for as long as I can remember. I think we can relate on that. And I have utilized life coaches myself and seen the growth that I had, but I never considered coaching myself. I was just always thought like you were like this special unicorn that had these special powers to coach people. And I got some information last fall, about a year ago, where I realized, oh my gosh, while I do think that coaches tend to and probably should, I don't know if that's the right word, have a kind of calling to do this work, I can learn the skill of coaching. It doesn't have to be like this magical thing that only some people, have. And so I kind of opened up my brain to that and kind of was like, oh, and I really wanted to get certified through the life coach school if I was going to do it. And we were going to wait. I talked it over with my husband and he was supportive, but kind of like he was transitioning into working from home himself, leaving his corporate job. And the timing just felt really wrong, even though like I had this like desire in my heart. So we were going to wait until this fall for me to do it. And I was going to save up for it and work up to have the money and pay in full. And I don't know what happened, but within like a week or two, I was like, I can't wait and I'm going to make this happen. And that's when I signed up, and my husband was, I did it like a budget. I ran the numbers and I was like, well, if we only spent this much, and I was kind of like doing all the math, and he was on board. And I remember I hit submit and I was like very emotional about it. And I just knew that I was going to make this happen. And I think I don't know how soon thereafter I reached out to you, but I was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I love what you said earlier about like people want to help you. Like this isn't some mean world online space where it's like every man for themselves. Like people want to support each other, especially women. We want to like lift each other up. And I think allowing other people to help you is huge, because that's not the easiest thing, to ask for help. But I'm so glad I did. So I went through certification and I quote graduated in September, and I'm still working with some VA clients. I'm just slowly building my practice. I work with recovering people pleasers because that's the work that I've done. I even had to do a lot of work on that with my client work, being a people pleaser. So yeah, that's where I am. I'm just so excited, like we said earlier, to have the opportunity to have an online business. It's amazing.
Yeah, so, so good. So anybody listening who is a people pleaser and wants help with it, they should talk to you. And I see people pleasing sabotage a lot of people in business. It starts out okay. Like, for people like you who are a helper, right? Like you want to help, you want to please, you think that's what you do in business. You please, you help your clients, you make them smile, you make them happy. And then it reaches this point where it starts to sabotage your business growth, your emotional health, and really take a toll on you and your business. So I've had to help a lot of clients drop the people pleasing their clients kind of activity. So anybody who needs to do that work or is trying to do that work should definitely hire you.
It's so funny too, because I mean, I've done just a lot of work on that in my personal relationships, but I didn't realize that I had that issue in my business until on a Mama to CEO call. I wasn't even really sure what I wanted coaching on, but I came with, I was presenting a problem and I don't know how, but just saw right through. And you were just like, well, you have to work on these boundaries with your current clients. Otherwise, you're going to take that into your coaching business. And essentially what you're saying was, I'm just pleasing my clients. I'm available to them whenever. And so that was another piece that I had to really fine tune. Like I'd done so much work on time management. And that was like the final piece for me of like setting those kind of boundaries of when I would be available. And this doesn't look like, going to the client and saying like, I'm only available between these hours.
Yeah.
It's more like my own boundaries and me showing up like when I say I'm going to and constraining and all those other things. So yeah, it's just funny how people pleasing it's in every relationship that we have, not just, with our partner or our mother-in-law.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. All right. Where can people find you if they want to know more?
Yes, so I can be found at KristiinaCraven.com, and it's Christina with a K, Craven with a C, and over on Instagram, and my handle is Christina.Craven. And if you're a coach, I am still taking clients in my VA business to support other coaches. So if you'd like more information on that, you can send me an email at hello@KristiinaCraven.com, or you can send me a DM over on Instagram. I'd love to hear more about your needs.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom. Bye, everybody. If you like this podcast, I want to invite you to coach with me over in my program, Mama to CEO. There's you, and there's the consistent income you want to make in your business, and I help you remove everything standing in between. It's lifetime access for mastering your marketing, sales, time, and everything else you need to have the business and life you really want. Whether it's making your first 1,000 or 100,000, I can help you do it. To join, go to mamatoceo.com, mamatoceo.com.